Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Walks of Music podcast, where my aim is to talk to people from all walks of music. So, my first conversation is with Louis Berthoud. He's a superb and world-class drummer with a master's obtained at the internationally coveted Leeds Conservatoire. Please show support for this podcast by following, liking, and subscribing on all of the big boy platforms. Any suggestions as well, be it guests or pointers or ideas in general, would greatly be appreciated. Be sure to also check out the accompanying playlist on Spotify. But for now, just enjoy this conversation with Louis Berthoud. What have you been listening to lately?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because I never really stopped listening to new music, I don't think. It's not really... Yeah, it's just something that's always interested me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's how I learn, actually, how I learn music.
Okay.
By checking new stuff out. I don't know if that's a great way to open the podcast, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so you're always listening to new music. I know people, like myself, I certainly have had stints where I haven't listened. I've struggled to find new music.
Yeah.
So how do you go about keeping it fresh? Like what platforms do you use, and how do you discover new stuff?
Well, lately it's been a lot of recommendations from other people, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I got recommended this soundtrack recently, which is not something I'd usually listen to. I usually listen to albums, not soundtracks, but it was a soundtrack to a Jesus film, actually. I think it was... Which one? I can't remember. Like Last Temptation of Christ.
Okay, yeah.
But the soundtrack, yeah, it's great. It's called Passions by Peter Gabriel, and it's... I don't really feel like you need the film to get the soundtrack, and that's how I know it's a good soundtrack, because it's... Yeah, you can get enough out of it without the picture there.
No, that's interesting. Like, 'cause you've got, other musicians who have actually specifically made albums like for movies that don't exist. Like there's Mark Rebo's got that record. I think it's just called Silent Movie or something, or Silent Film.
Oh, yeah.
And that's with the direct intention of doing the sentiment behind what you've just said, essentially, where you don't need the film, that you can have something that sounds cinematic, which is an interesting concept.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I checked that out, and I checked out another one as well, another soundtrack by Johnny Greenwood, which was just really good. Because obviously, I do like classical music, but obviously Johnny Greenwood, I don't actually know whether he was classically trained, but he's certainly, I think of him as a rock musician.
Mm-hmm.
But here he is, clearly very skilled at orchestrating and arranging classical instruments, and that's... Yeah, I thought his soundtrack, what was it? It's Phantom Thread that was the one that I checked out first, which was... I just thought it was really well arranged, and I found he was able to pinpoint a specific sound with very few instruments, and kind of stick to one thing each track. And I think that, it's very difficult to do.
Absolutely.
Especially if you want to just put as many ideas as you can into a song. It takes a special kind of restraint to kind of actually just think what needs to be here. And what's the real unique selling point of this track that I can bring out, which he does pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think that comes out, Johnny Greenwood being of Radiohead, and especially in their latest record, the Moonshaped Pool, some of the string arrangements on that is you can tell he's really worked his chops up, since some of the earlier strings in their earlier records. And yeah, I haven't personally actually delved too much into his solo arrangements and things. I've dabbled, but I'll definitely take that as a recommendation. Phantom Thread, not Phantom Fred.
No, Phantom Fred.
Yeah, it's quite
It's a film about Fred Bentos, the tennis player. Wait, is he a tennis player?
It might as well be. Someone will know. Someone out there.
I don't think he is actually, but someone will probably correct me in the comments section.
Oh yes, that's what it's there for.
But yeah, Phantom Thread. I don't even know what the film's about, but based on the cover, it looked like sort of almost a period drama. I don't know, something old timey. But obviously, again, I haven't seen the film.
That'd be an interesting thing, though, to have listened to the music to the film, and now you have this image in your head, similar to when you read a book, for instance, and then you watch a movie all the other way round. I can't Like, I mean, not that I have revisited any of the Harry Potter books, but like, I'm so thankful that I read, I think it was the fourth book was out or something by the time the movies, or maybe the third one, before, you know, Daniel Radcliffe became Harry Potter. So I already had in my head, like, you know, my version of Harry Potter, and obviously watching the movies destroyed that a bit, but it was nice to have that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, the similar thing, but with music.
I don't think anyone imagined Daniel Radcliffe when they first read Harry Potter. But then that's just because he's a unique face.
He is, and he's like...
I pictured someone generic, to be honest, when I read Harry Potter. I was like, just an average kid. Like, not that Daniel Radcliffe isn't, but, you know. No. I had my own picture of who those characters were looking like, much like you. But also, to be fair, the books had covers.
Yeah, it did lead you to think in a certain way about him, because obviously I think there's always that like thing, unless you're like reading like Dickens or someone who's like very descriptive, you know, like who's going to describe every minute detail. Like you're going to have the gaps to fill with your imagination, and then the front cover kind of meets you halfway with that, and then the film literally gives it to you, you know. Yes. On a plate.
It really does. It really does.
But right, back to more musical things and not so...
musical things. So I checked out a few soundtracks recently, which has been nice. Especially, I mean, it just kind of, when I hear good soundtracks, it just makes me want to be able to like write one, which I know is a really huge, big deal, but like, it's perhaps one of my aspirations. Like, when I write music, I'm kind of thinking, I'd really like to do a soundtrack one day.
Yeah.
Whether that's, you know, years and years or never, I don't know.
So what is it that like appeals to you? Like, 'cause obviously, like when I think of cinema and think of like movies, I think of like orchestra, and that in many ways is kind of like saved the orchestra and classical music, and like it's justified it in the modern kind of field, because otherwise it's, you know, kind of replaying old kind of classical pieces, whereas it's given a new lease of life to classical. And is that what you imagine when you say you would like to do things, you know, for a movie? Because you do obviously have like electronic kind of bass soundtracks and fusion stuff that's like Hans Zimmer. Some of his stuff is very kind of fusion, where he does have like synth basses and other like modern production.
Like a big Moog. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not really sure. Because I think I'd want to be able to do what I wanted to do. I'd want to be able to write what I want to write, and hope that like a bit of that would work in a soundtrack sort of sense. Because the people I kind of admire at the minute, I checked out this one guy called Chris Cerrone, who does a lot of classical sort of instrumentation, but his pieces, like, they definitely sound like his own stuff. Like, he's not pandering to anyone. I think he still gets quite a lot of popularity, and I think it's that like individuality and authenticity of his work that gets, you know, people are like, oh yeah, I want that on my film. I don't know, but his process is great, because he uses this might be a bit too in depth actually. No,
I'll tell you, or like ask you to maybe dial it back if it is. So go as deep as you want to.
I don't know. He has all the instruments that he plays, because he's like a multi-instrumentalist, and then he records each of them, like little phrases and bits. Records them into Logic, and then kind of messes around with them in the DAW.
Okay.
Kind of, so he composes that way, sort of more like Frankensteining things together.
Yeah.
And then once he's got a sound that he likes, I think he works into Sibelius or some other notation software, and then attempts to create a document of what he's done in the DAW.
Wow. So that's quite a convoluted process. That's like not very linear, and it's like that. Yeah, it does take that modern approach of manipulation of sound, and like, but then it sounds like it's kind of like with an attempt to still like retain some sort of like organic and like heritage, classical heritage to it. But again, like being able to play those instruments himself, obviously makes a huge difference to the limitations of his ability to play those instruments, and that's what he's working with. Yeah,
because obviously it's so good that he can play the instruments. It's like, it's definitely an addition to his practice, but I think like somebody else who couldn't play those instruments could still get away with it just using MIDI instruments. I think that's one of the great things about MIDI instruments is you can get the same sounds, but you don't have to know how to play the actual instruments.
Yeah.
Because it takes time learning an instrument.
No, it definitely does.
Yeah. I'm just happy to know how to play the drums, really. And the other ones can kind of... I'd be shit at, but can do the MIDI version.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because we haven't actually touched on, we talked about, the music that you're into, and we can continue to talk about that, but you've kind of brought up a perfect segue into, your principal instrument. Perfect segue. Yeah, I mean, I've never had a go on a segue. I think it might end in disaster.
Quite easy to control, I think. Once you're on them, it feels like walking.
Okay.
Not that I've done it many times, but...
No. Well, you've done it, though. Have you done it once?
Just once, yeah.
Oh, wow. Whose was it?
It was nobody's we knew. It was just I think it was a birthday party. Back when they used to be cool and they're not just getting drunk in a room. Back when you used to go, my rich friend kind of just went segwaying and they were like, that's what everyone did. Yeah.
We've been distracted by a segue in a segue to the next section.
Oh, this is going to be such a weird podcast. I feel like we're dropping our listeners in it a little bit.
I guess, but I think that's, that's what I would like to do. Is you've been, brought into a conversation between two people. And this is what happens in conversations, well, at least with me. I find, a lot of conversations go...
The tangents, constant...
I think that is where the heart of a conversation is in the first place. But to bring it back to what the segue actually was, which was to do with your principal instrument, the drums, and how you got into that, where you're at with that, how you've studied and how long you've been studying that. Just tell me about your background.
Yeah, sure.
With drums.
Yeah, can do. It was kind of the first instrument I really wanted to learn, I think, because I had given piano a go, piano lessons, but I never really enjoyed it that much. I was always, I just sucked at sight reading. I think that was a big part of the piano lessons I had. So I kind of, a bit not interested in that. But with drums, well, it was actually, I suppose I've got my family definitely to thank for that. Not just in, supporting me, but also they bought an electric kit for my dad, I think, when I was 10.
Oh, wow.
And that was because my dad wanted to learn how to play. So, but obviously I just kept I kept sitting on it, I kept giving it a go. And I just think, as soon as I sat down on the kit, I was just drums are for me. I just really enjoy. I kind of understand how it works a little bit.
Yeah, it felt right to you.
Yeah.
There's no immediate thing that put you off, say with the sight reading. I think there's often theory and other, I don't know, standardized kind of learning techniques that come with other instruments because of the emphasis on melody and notes. I think it's a lot more to take on. I personally know a lot of people who are complete non-musicians, and if I was to ask them what instrument they want to play, it probably would be the drums because of that visceral and raw element to the instrument, and at the same time there's this infinite depth and complexity to it. If you want, it's kind of an opt-in rather than the piano. You sat there and you might learn to play chopsticks or something, stupid, something kind of just a little bit of fun. But I think the drums are accessible.
They are, way. Even if you want to play a simple piano piece, it can still melt your brain. And I guess the same is true with drums, obviously. I know it takes a while to get used to the coordination. Because even though you're not using 10 fingers with the piano, you're still using both arms and legs. I think it's the combination of arms and legs which is quite difficult to get your head around. Because they do want to do different things, and not always the things that you want them to do.
Yeah. No, so electric drums, though, as a start, that's an interesting thing, because... Obviously, I think a lot of people, when they think of drums, they just want to, beat the shit out of, something and make a racket. And obviously, kind of half the intention of an electric drum kit is to reduce the acoustic kind of volume. So, it's kind of probably good for your parents as well to have you on, an electric kit practicing rather than, being there, washing away on the cymbals and smashing the snare. And,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's...
I remember, I think I had a couple of jams on that thing. Like, I just remember playing, like, Metallica and stuff on it.
Oh, wow.
So obviously that wouldn't have really gone down so well with an acoustic kit.
No.
But it wasn't long before I got an acoustic drum kit.
Okay.
It was, like, perhaps, like, half a year or so.
Sure.
Because I did, I was like, I do want to learn this, for real and get, I think I got the grades done. No, I started on grades quite quickly and it was like, yeah.
So that kind of appealed to you, being able to measure like your abilities on, some sort of scale.
And just having something to work on that's like clear, like, because they give you the rudimental study, which is like more snare drum technique. And then there's a piece to a backing track and a solo piece as well. Yeah. So it's just fun.
Yeah, and how did you like fail any of the exams, like, or anything for those grades, or did you just like, obviously work hard and just first try kind of smash them all?
Well, I'm definitely, I just, in classic nerd style, I did get all of them with distinction.
Oh, dude.
Which is not even cool. I mean, it is, but it's not really cool. I wish I had kind of failed one, really, thinking about it.
No, I'm not surprised though, because I do think you are like impeccably talented on the instrument, and like that isn't through much like other than just like hard work, and you can tell that. Like, obviously I do think with instruments, particularly at rhythm, there is like a sense of natural ability that some people have, but I don't think that ever detracts from the fact that I've known you for a while and you've always put in the time and the hours, and it sounds like the way that I can relate as a musician is like that kind of like the struggle and like the kind of suffering and the kind of the pain when you hear somebody doing something and they don't get it right, and you hear like an oh fuck, and then you hear them do it again, and you just hear that repetition. And I've heard that through walls and been practicing with you, and you clearly have worked hard. So like,
it's not the same when you're doing it, because when you're doing it, you're just doing it, you're learning this thing. But when someone else listens to it, they're like, oh my god, they've played it like 20 times. What's wrong with them? Kind of thing.
But do you find like that in itself like is like a form of like, I don't know, like meditation therapy, or like cathartic, or any of those kind of like generic kind of terms, I guess, to describe that kind of that, I don't know, that
definitely, no, always when I sit down, like when I finish practicing at the drums, I always just feel better, like it just feels like like I did some good work, even if it wasn't work. It's definitely work in the sense that I'm working at something.
So
I always feel better afterwards. And I don't know, I'm just glad that I've had that kind of interest in music and that kind of passion for it to really allow it to be almost a mode of like therapy, really, like something that just really enriches my life.
That was something actually that I was going to ask, like, was in regards to it being like therapeutic and like in terms of mental health. Like I know myself, like there is something like, obviously in writing a song with lyrics, like there's a very like linear process of like, this is how I'm feeling, and you can tie it up in metaphor and all the rest of it. But I do think aside from that very obvious path, like on an instrument like the drums, where it's not so verbal but it's still very physical, like how do you think music has like helped you work through hard times?
I know. I don't know, it's getting deep now, isn't it?
I mean, maybe you don't have to answer.
No, I'd happily answer that question. I would. Well, I've always been kind of quite an introverted person, I think. And I've been diagnosed with Asperger's from a young age, and I think having all this time kind of where I've been doing things on my own has kind of meant that I've just developed quite almost an emotional connection with music, which is it's really weird to say, but and like just hashing out stuff, working on things, and getting good at things is just really like something that has really helped me, I think. No,
it's a powerful thing, and like just you saying that, like Yeah, I get the sense that like you really mean that. Like it's not like, because those words you could imagine just being said like very emptily, and I really get the sense from your relationship with music that it has been such an important part of your development as a person and not just as a musician. I think that's like the overlap that I think that is most interesting with like something like art in general. Is both as a listener, because you say it's helped you through like Asperger's and and that's more in terms of the playing that we were just talking, but then obviously like the music you listen to, like the emotional response you have and the connection you might feel. Or am I don't know if I'm just projecting that like from what you've just said.
No, it's true. I mean, obviously I consider like my general mental health to be like kind of a lot more decent than it perhaps was. And now I feel like music is just something I can do to add joy to my life, which is already like, but without music it's not like I'm unhappy, it's more just like a fun thing that I can do. But what was it you said? I can't actually remember. I don't think I answered your question. I think I just said what I wanted to say, which is pretty classic, isn't it?
No, that's fine though, because that's kind of I might ask the wrong question, if you know what I mean. Like I might ask something that you don't have much to like say exactly about that, and you.
Oh no, you talked about like emotional response to listening to music. Yeah, I used to have my headphones on all the time. I remember, I would listen to music so much, and now there's just not so much time for that, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. It means I can kind of pick my moments more when I really want to listen to something, and I kind of know it's a bit more special because I've really chosen the moment when I'm going to listen to this, this album. I'm actually going to. It's not just like kind of dead, like just kind of background noise. Yeah, almost.
That just raises like an interesting thought, like in terms of listening to music and the way that you listen to music. You say like you used to listen to more music on headphones. Do you think that like the way that you're listening to music affects your choice of music to listen to? Like, are you more inclined to listen to something more emotionally moving and powerful in headphones than, say, out of a loudspeaker or out of your laptop that might not do it justice, or a phone? You know what I mean?
Definitely. The headphones are like, regardless of how they affect, your ears' health, like they're the best way to listen to music, in my opinion. It's just like you're really in there with it, I think. But if I'm listening to something, just putting something on, it'll be out speakers or. I don't know, man. But I've got like some really crappy headphones. I say I love music and I have these like 10 quid headphones.
No, I think I'm the same. I
haven't got into the earpods, the wireless.
Oh, I'm not sure they're I'm not dissing them. I think for what they are, they're probably quite good quality. And the technology in like headphones and bass response in particular.
Like, walk in and check the song out. You can throw it to your mate up 6 floors.
I would lose them. I think that's my problem. I rely on the cables as a thing to help me find them. Almost. Like I just lose, like for instance, like practicing. I guess we could talk a bit about this, like ear protection, especially like with drums. But like the plugs you might have. Like just the buds, I'm always losing those, and that's because they don't have like anything tethered to them. Like I started actually using the little tie that it came with just to not lose them. I didn't actually like the feeling of it on my neck or anything, but, like is that something you, as a drummer in particular, like hearing protection, like have you noticed, like you say you were drumming from, was it 10 or 11? Was it
11? I think we might have got the kit when I was 10. I just can't remember. I know it was secondary school when I had lessons, so that would have been 11 through 18 or so. So have you found that your opinions on the importance of looking after your hearing have changed over that, or have you always kind of had an appreciation for your hearing, or have you just gotten lucky? Or I don't know. I think I've just never. Well, the drums don't sound that great if you don't have hearing protection on.
Oh, okay.
If you, I don't know, like it just removes a few frequencies that might be a little bit like intense.
Mm-hmm.
So I find I actually sound really good when I have headphones on. And then when I take them off, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, no.
I think drummers probably relate to that. I feel like you lose touch with the actual sound of your instrument sometimes, because obviously whether you're dampening it for, you know, practicing in the home or, just like only in protection, you kind of, there's less, weirdly enough, there might be less of a relationship with the instrument, you know, of what it actually sounds like. I don't know.
No, that's an interesting thought, because in my head, like, just to push back with like what I have experienced, because I've done a bit of drumming myself, is I found like most of the stuff you do in the arms is kind of fine, but I find like the kick, like there's something about that like, I don't know, it doesn't feel, I can't hear it properly, because I think it's the quietest element of the drum kit for how loud it should be.
Yeah.
You know, like the snare's always way too loud and the cymbals are way too loud. But I find, when I got earplugs, it's just like a dull thud and there's no like resonance to it.
Yeah.
Like, but
I suppose the sound is being cannoned outwards, isn't it? Not upwards.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, actually. Yeah, that's probably part of what I'm talking about.
I don't know.
I just thought I'd just kind of offer my opinion on that as well, because I think that's the most interesting thing. Is I've never spoken to people, let alone two musicians, who, like, even if they share the same opinion, their reasons for their opinion are always based in some sort of other experience. But no, that's very interesting. So you kind of prefer the earplugs.
Yeah, and also when if you've got a bit of sound dampening, it means you can listen to tunes at the same time. And that's one thing, I feel like that's a good way to practice, is to actually play along to tunes. And even with the drums in, so then, like if you hear something cool in the drums, you might try and mirror it next time. Like if you listen to a track again, you're like, oh, there's a fill coming up, I'll kind of, copy that. So I think it's just like copying, that's what I've done, I've copied, but no one knows, because obviously like,
well, now they do.
Oh God!
You're just giving yourself away, man.
The world knows
the trade secrets. Just plagiarism. You're like Noel and Liam Gallagher, except for they're just pretty out and out. Like we took that from the Beatles.
Yes,
we did that.
They should thank us for that, actually.
So you say you use like the over ear ones, right?
Either those or in ears. Mm-hmm. But in ears, they're better for like live, just because they're a bit fancier, aren't they?
Yeah, they look a bit nicer.
They look more pro, They're, other than like having the big headphones, they look a bit kind of like, like who's that there? Who's that guy? Isolating themselves.
One of the guitarists from Linkin Park, I think, or is it I know it's one of the members. Yeah, he used to use like the closed like construction site kind of ear things. I remember that was like part of his look.
Was it?
Yeah. I don't know. I might be wrong on that. I'm certain it's someone of that kind of new metal era. Anyway, kind of had that. And I guess that's like another thing we haven't really talked about. You kind of touched on, like the things that you used to play style-wise as a drummer when you were kind of establishing. You said like Metallica, and obviously I think at that age, like,
oh yeah,
metal and those heavier genres and anything full of angst kind of just appeal to you as an outlet, and particular on the drums, because you just get to go ape shit and just smash. But how have you found your interests as a drummer have changed, and your drum kit accordingly, and you know what I mean, like how has that influenced how you've expanded your cymbals or your snare and or what just
I could talk about that, because well, I guess, like the metal kind of genre is more like, get all the cymbals. I've got like two chinas on each side, so you just
one up there.
I think, anyway. It might have changed, because I don't really follow metal as a genre too much. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just impractical to play. Especially here, in this room, because I do have a kit just behind those cameras there. Mm-hmm. Kind of more of a broken down kit, and I think that's that's the main thing I've learned. Is you got to do as much as you can with a little amount of drums. So like one ride, one hi-hat, snare and bass, and like a floor tom I think is enough, really.
Okay.
But then obviously one crash, one rack tom is fine too.
It suddenly becomes a lot bigger, doesn't it?
I think the more you get into drums, the more you realise like it's more like quality, not quantity. And you kind of want to get like that like really expensive ride cymbal, and then like you don't need another cymbal, you're kind of good.
Yeah, no, that's a good point actually.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like quantity over quality, quality over quantity, that way around.
Yeah, I say that, but also it's great to experiment as well, and to have like that crappy like splash cymbal that you kind of use to make stacks out of. Like if you put it with other cymbals and then like, I don't know, yeah, just Frankensteining bits of the kit together is also really fun too.
Yeah, I guess that's like part of it is that will then influence your sound as well. Like, because you often think like, oh, like you're influenced by a certain band and they might have certain equipment, and you, especially I find like when you're younger and you're more heavily influenced, or more easily influenced, like you would pick things and then you'd kind of emulate that and you'd go for copying it, and through that you get like a breadth of experience, don't you, and you decide what you do and don't like, and then you start having it influenced the other way around, like you're saying about reducing your kit down, and having those limitations that then influences the way that you play, because you no longer can have the same physicality even on the kit, never mind the actual technical limitations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So at the minute you were saying you got the small kit in the corner of the room down there, and that's
it's very small. Yeah.
But you're using a cajon with that as well. That's something you didn't mention as the kick.
A cajon is a box in Spanish.
Yeah, no, I remember you told me that. And I was just like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense, because I think I know the origin story of the instrument, but if you know it...
Yes.
Like...
do I know it? Is it something to do with the postal workers and some boxes?
Essentially, I think it was. Yeah, it's just there's a load of people with boxes, and they were just jamming, man, and they sat on the box and they're just hitting away, striking away. And
the difference with this is I've got a pedal on it, so because usually with the bass drum you have to sit and then play the bass drum, so you need a stool as well, and then that's extra space. So with this, you can sit on the cajon and then basically play your seat, which is pretty good. Yeah,
and that helps with gigging, because we've gigged together, and it means we can get it all in a taxi, and...
Yes, it means I can ride my cajon to the gig.
Put some wheels on it. That'll be something.
Pretty good.
No, so...
But that's influenced it. And I guess the music as well that I listened to when I started drums was very different. Like I listened to a lot more... I guess you'd call it prog rock, kind of like Porcupine Tree.
Okay.
Tool.
Sure.
And these kind of bands where it's definitely hard hitting, it's rock, but it's sort of, there's an emphasis on like odd time signatures and like pop elements as well. So I think that really, as a drummer, I was like, this is just great. And I've got my first drum teacher, Keith Landberger, to thank for that, because he got me into all that stuff. He was like, right, Louis, check this out.
Yeah.
Porcupine Tree. I was like, oh yeah, that's so cool. Because up until then, I hadn't really listened to much drum music. I just knew that I liked, percussion in general.
When you say you hadn't listened to much drum music, like what was your pre-drum and pre-prog era? Like what, because you said, I think you mentioned earlier, like that your family, your dad was the one who got the kit in the first place. So like what are your like beginnings in music before you got behind the drum kit? What, as a listener and in your family?
Well, my parents were very musical, and I have them to thank for a lot of the influence, like just having CDs and tapes like kind of all over the place, and like sharing that with me as well. Me and my sister, we grew up in a very musical household. I do have a memory of like kind of just like looking at the shelves of CDs, because they were mainly classical, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It was classical music that I really like grew up on. But I just remember like seeing all the CDs one day, and I was like, oh yeah, can I pick music today? It's just like a feeling of power. I was like, oh yeah. I think I went with like Vivaldi or something.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's like proper classical, but
it really is.
Four Seasons. I think it appealed to me because I was like, oh yeah, Four Seasons. I know what a season is, therefore I know the music.
Yeah, I think that's...
The other one was Carnival of the Animals, so it's...
Oh wow, I love that. That's like one of my favorite. That is like literally, I think, one of my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, favorite kind of I just love who is it? Saint Saëns, is it? Or how do you say the name?
It's like croissant, but it's Sasson, isn't it?
Sasson. See, I don't even know. Yeah, I've only ever read it. Like, I've never actually said it, and if I have, I've always kind of done that thing, do you know, when you say a word really quickly so that people know what you mean, but you've gotten away with not saying it right. So Sasson. Yeah, I don't
assume, yeah. I mean, if you read it, it says Saint Saëns, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of ridiculous.
But that's some of my favourite music. The is it Aquarium or something in that? Like, that is an insane, like, just because I think I looked at the music for it, and like, yeah, there's just like crazy stuff going on with like it's kind of creating a blend of textures, because I think there's like triplety things going on and very fast like sixteenths, and yeah, there's just like this overlap of texture, and it's obviously to make that watery sound. And I mean, there are some of the ones in that suite of music which let it down a bit. They feel a bit like technical exercises. I think there's one of them which is like, just feels like, I think it's like modulating a major scale. I can't remember what animal it is.
No, I feel like he started with Aquarium, maybe got a few others, but then he was like, okay, now I need to write 19 other animals. And then
yeah.
But you're right though. I love that. That's one of the things that I love about kind of like more classical music, because you can guarantee like a specific texture. You actually write it down. You'd say you write down the triplets in one instrument and then quavers in another, so you get that polyrhythm. You might have even like quintuplets in another, and then it just creates this mad polyphony that you wouldn't get if you were improvising, or well, obviously it wouldn't be really suitable to a lot of other music. But yeah, that's one thing, coming back to the soundtrack thing. If you want to create like a specific like texture or something that reflects a mood, like, I think, yeah, doing that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so you had that influence, you say,
Yes.
classical stuff very early on, and yeah, that, I guess for a lot of people, like, classical music is quite inaccessible, like, or they feel that way, you know. I feel like there is like a strange taboo surrounding the genre, and like, I feel like the older I've got personally, the more broken down that taboo. I've always enjoyed odds and ends of classical music, but I think to have that at such an early age, something like, because I think classical music obviously can be quite minimal, it can be like a quartet arrangement or like something very, very reductive, but yeah, it does have that ability to be so considered and so rich, and so, yeah, it's just amazing, like the sheer power that can be generated, you know, like from having a whole symphony orchestra there.
And that's it. I think in its heart it is like a live music, even though obviously the score is kind of like the main document of these old composers, because obviously they're not alive. But I think, the live performances, that's really like what it's all about, because it is so powerful. And there's no other time when you're really going to get, I don't know, like 100 musicians in the same room. It's just kind of an impressive human feat, really. But yeah, there's many things in classical that I think is definitely very like outdated and like stilted, and kind of like, I kind of don't like that about classical, or like that's a bit much, or I don't know.
Yeah. Have you got any examples? Like, not to, like, not to just diss someone, but I mean, most of them are dead anyway, so, or, I don't know if you're not comfortable.
I don't have any diss stories, to be fair.
Diss track.
On whatever,
classical musicians.
I guess it's just like, because obviously notated music's really great, but if you kind of say notated music is the only form of music, or like the best form of music, I don't think it always works. I think actually these guys, like the Chris Cerrone guy I mentioned, and like there's another guy called Nick Storing who's quite interesting.
Storing.
Yeah, Storing, and Anna Meredith as well, actually, to be fair, who was classically trained but then went into more like of a pop direction, which is kind of the opposite the way you'd normally go, I think, or maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, her music's great. But it's like these people are kind of breaking down the, I guess, like the taboos of like, oh yeah, classical music, you have to wear a suit, and you have to like, I don't know, like hate pop music. I don't know.
No, I think that's like a really astute observation of what the like the dichotomy of like the different areas in music, like, because you kind of, I know growing up, like when streaming wasn't such a thing, like there was a lot more, I don't know, division in music genres. Like I remember when I grew up, it was like I just liked rock exclusively, but I see more and more now like people, like because of playlists and Spotify and streaming, like people just love everything, and there are now more genres which are like fusion based. But yeah, you did see like more of a, like within pop music, you know, like hip hop was seen as like the opposite of rock. You know, that's from my personal experience, it felt like that. But then obviously that was played on by like Aerosmith and Run DMC, you know, and you had that kind of acceptance within pop culture of that, like, and that's why that song was successful, like the Walk This Way, and there's so many other examples of that. And nowadays that's just become normal. Like the top 40 is full of like features, and the features aren't always, you know, from the same genre. So but there's bigger, broader strokes than that, like what you're talking about, which is like almost like the inbuilt class system within classical music. Because,
that's never good, is it? Because obviously, to learn like a cello, you kind of have to, you have to have quite a big house, don't you? Yeah. And probably enough money to buy a cello. Which does kind of, it's not great, but I don't really know how that can be fixed. And actually, to be fair, by mixing it with the laptop music, which we discussed, like the MIDI and stuff, like everyone kind of owns a laptop, so it does open it out, I think, a little bit. It's just difficult, I don't know. Because obviously I'm talking about this stuff, but I'm really more of a fan of classical music. Like I don't really know shit as to how to play it. I just like it, and I kind of think, it just influences what I do musically. I'm definitely no expert.
No, it's very difficult to be an expert, and I think that's why it's so impressive, like still to this day, you know. It's not something like what you're saying about like the accessibility perhaps of like these instruments through software, and all these sounds, no matter how good they get, as an emulation technology, like there is still always going to be an appreciation, in parallel to that of the real thing. You know, it's the uncanny valley. You're never going to be able to quite replace the real thing. And as you say, it's like a live music form. And I've been lucky enough to see a couple of live orchestras, like either whilst studying like student orchestras, or just through my own personal interest. And like you see more and more, like there are touring, like Hans Zimmer did like a live tour of the music he did for, what was it, Blue Planet,
really?
Which was I think it was the second one that he did work with. They reworked the track, another Radiohead mention. They reworked one of their tracks off King of Limbs. I can't remember which one it was. In Bloom, or is it In Bloom? No, that's bloody thingy, isn't it? That's a little bit different. But in any case, there's like this like postmodern kind of, well, it feels postmodern, like this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to turn my neck around when you said postmodern.
But it's very interesting, like the I don't know, the second wave, like well, another renaissance, because obviously already.
Another renaissance. Yes. And a lot of more like simple pieces are being written as well, like this kind of minimalism, I guess, with guys who are, I don't know, like Max Richter and these kind of people who fall in like the neoclassical realm. I've not listened to much of him, to be fair. I just dropped his name because I think he's cool. But one guy I have listened to is this, I don't know, John Luther Adams is quite good at this sort of stuff, where it's like minimalism using acoustic instruments. Because that's one thing I think about with classical music, is it's kind of almost the most purely acoustic music. Like obviously rock is amplified, and like acoustic. So he makes ambient music out of these acoustic instruments, and it kind of takes on like more of a, I don't know, like when he writes ambient string music, it sounds like you're kind of in like a wintry forest, that kind of like crispy. I don't know what I'm talking about now, but
no, I know what you mean.
Something to do with like the harmonics he's using, and also one technique that Adams uses is definitely like he writes a note obviously, and then like thinks what are the overtones of that note, And instead of just leaving them be, he kind of accentuates them with other instruments. So, for example, like the fifth fundamental of this G note played on the violin is being played on like another violin, but higher up. So it's almost like, it sounds like one sound, but it's a whole ensemble.
Sure, yeah.
It's very off-putting, but also quite, it's really interesting as well.
Absolutely, that does sound interesting. I don't think I've listened to any of that. I think you have mentioned, previously, like off air, as it were. Yeah, I think I do remember you mentioning that. And yeah, it does sound like an interesting concept to take, like, I guess that would be like the scientific kind of understanding of like the way that like a sound wave is created, and the difference between a piano playing the G note and a violin or any other instrument, the harmonics that kind of build up over that.
Yeah, there was a movement called spectralism, which I think is a great name.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think of like spectres and ghosts and stuff. I'm trying to think when it came in. It was like not recent. It was like 20th century, like 80s or so, 70s, 80s. But yeah, these guys, these composers were like trying to basically fool you into thinking you're hearing one thing, and it turns out it's another thing. It's very, I don't know, it's quite technical music, but it's also really exciting to listen to.
Mm.
So for instance, like you might play a trombone note and then obviously take all those overtones, spread them out over the rest of the ensemble, and then you kind of hear this weird sound that just keeps going, and you're like, what the hell's happening? Or you might like, I don't know, pluck a harp and then have a violin playing it like triple P underneath it, so you can't hear the violin at the start, but then, you realise this note's being sustained. How is this happening?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's just fun to listen to as well.
Yeah, I think that's like the interesting thing with music, is that there are so many different functions for it. And, we've obviously talked about film music, and we've talked about, just raw classical music, and a lot of the classical music was written for, like ballet and opera, and it had a function.
Mm.
And then obviously you've got like pop music, which like, can have several functions. I mean, a lot of it, is made for the club as well, which is obviously currently, given, COVID, like, is off limits, which is going to be interesting to see the effect of that within, like, music, because the club is now the home. And
I saw, like, the funniest thing where it's like, I don't know, it's something like someone going off on one about the COVID lockdown, they were like, I haven't shaken my ass to WAP in the club yet, or something like that. I don't know. It probably sounds funny me saying it as well, because like
I think that's a great point.
It kind of made me think, a lot of these club bangers that have been written now, they haven't seen their function, have they?
No. It makes you wonder as well how much people maybe are holding back as well. Like, people might have written a load of bangers, but they're like, I ain't wasting this, because no one's gonna be able to like shake their booty to it, or whatever like people want to do to the music. But
Calvin Harris has got like 2,000 songs on his laptop, and he hasn't released anything.
Just ready to go, man. I think it's very interesting to think of like the function of music, and there are obviously things which are like intellectual feats, where it's kind of like conceptual. I have this idea, can it be done? And a lot of the time it can be, and obviously technology has made things very many different things possible. And God knows what the future of music kind of holds in that sense, because everyone always feels like all of the, the pioneering and the development is done, and then somebody comes along and just does something totally mad.
Yeah. And that's why I think pop music is so almost, it's important, because like in that, even though you might be innovating, it's like, it's more about like the authenticity of the artist singing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll never get old, because there's always going to be more people, more individuals, and so I think like I do enjoy listening to, obviously, like crazy shit and intellectual music or whatever, but also like you can't, like, people who say things in few words in a pop song, it's even cleverer, I think. In some ways, I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
And there's certain songs that have stuck with me more than, like, say, a longer piece has. I don't know. It all depends, really.
I think that's it, is the context of listening to it. And sometimes, like, I enjoy listening to music while I'm reading, and for that function, I don't want something that's too, verbal. Like, I remember I think I was asking even you for some like hip hop recommendations, and like I was trying to listen to that while I was reading, and like there's a lot of like humor and there's a lot of like depth as well, like in the lyrics, and it's like that form of like rap music. It is so about the lyrics. I couldn't read at the same time because I was like literally like reading about something like crazy that's in crazy contrast to what the lyrics are about. I'm listening to contemporary problems of urban life, and I'm reading about some sort of thing set in the 1800s, and it just like that juxtaposition it didn't go. And like, whereas I find that like, and this isn't just me because you put it into YouTube, reading music and it's all bloody classical, like there is something about that that's quite cerebral, and that's just one of the contexts that like the music could be written for as well, like it obviously with the classical music it might not have been written with the intention of me reading whatever.
That's the great thing about YouTube. It's like none of these pieces of music or like albums were written for you sat there reading. No one, from the past at least, they were just like it's totally different now. What the purpose of music is, or how it's like listened to. Like, because if you go to one album on YouTube and you see the sidebar, like there's a whole list of recommendations for you there that might be totally different, but they're linked in some way just because. There's kind of this postmodern way of like, I'll listen to anything, and I want to,
give it a go.
Give it a go. You're not so like stopped by genre. You're not like like you mentioned before. You used to be just kind of into rock, and now it's sort of you listen to anything. Because I know that I've went through phases where it's just like rock music is kind of like I'm just like this is probably the best. Like nothing else is really as good as rock music.
No, I know what you mean. It's very that you get that the blinkers on. You get
It's it's not just a phase.
I guess now
it turns out it was.
You don't have the same financial burden, do you? Like whereas before, like you might, like before streaming and those services kind of existed, you'd have to buy music or borrow it from someone, or maybe not so legally attain a copy.
Emule.
Yes, I mean, you can, but there was more of a. There's more barriers in the way of you experiencing new music before, whereas now, you've almost got no excuse to not check out something, because like what? Like your internet, you're not paying in most cases for like an actual like tariff, are you? You're not like getting cut off, like, I need to save my gigabytes of internet. You can just watch as much YouTube as you want if you're on the Wi-Fi. Like you just blast it through. It has changed the way people.
And also with like autoplay, you put something on and then it just autoplays to the next thing. And you're like, I'm cool with that, even if it's totally different.
True,
Totally different to what you might have checked out. I guess that's another good thing about playlists, isn't it? Like these kind of playlists that Spotify makes for you. Mm-hmm. Pretty good. I mean, I never really use them just because I'm quite obstinate. But I mean, I do. But like, I'm not like, I need new music. I'll go to a Spotify playlist. I'm more likely to just
religiously do that. Is it Friday? There's like the new music playlist or something. I think it's Friday. I mean, I might have just completely made myself into a fool by showing how irrelevant my knowledge is. Yeah, well, I don't. Who knows what day it is? It's
to be fair, it feels like it could be any day.
But
blend into one.
Yeah, the playlist. That's a very interesting point. Like a CD used to end, and before that, a tape. And then before that, a vinyl, like all these things kind of like, even with the vinyl, to listen to the whole thing, you had to halfway through it, flip the thing over. And obviously there's the resurgence in popularity of vinyl, which is an interesting topic. And I know actually, you like, that's a perfect segue into like the fact that, you have enjoyed like vinyl as a man living in an era where you could have digital things. Like, what is it about vinyl for you personally that is the appeal?
I mean, I don't want to diss anything to do with vinyl by dissing myself, but I would say I didn't necessarily buy vinyl because I don't know, I felt like I was kind of showing off a bit. I was like, just get that on vinyl,
Yeah.
Because it's like, I know this album so well, I just get the vinyl, just support the artist.
Yeah, it's a bit of a flex.
Yeah, I did buy quite a few though, and I really got into it, and it did mean a lot to me at one point, so I can't say too badly about it, but it's just too expensive, I think, and it's also, it's just, yes, it's expensive, let's put it that way. And it's made of plastic as well, isn't it? So
yeah, no, that's very true. I think
that's one thing. I think I saw Moby or something, because he's quite animal rights, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
I saw him post a picture of his vinyl collection. He was like, I know they're all plastic, but just this once, or something like that. Just let me off for these, because it's like just vinyl. No, to be fair, I do get it. It's so nice.
Yeah, it's tactile, isn't it? And like the artwork being so big is like, I've never personally collected it.
Yeah.
Like the only vinyl that I own is, I think, a Muppets vinyl I got while I was in Amsterdam. I obviously was sampling what was legal in Amsterdam, and I went to a market and they had a Muppets vinyl. I thought, man, if there isn't a better thing, you know, a souvenir to bring back. I've never actually even listened to it. I don't even have a vinyl player. But there was something. I love other people's vinyl collections. Just for the art, again, like it's just nice and big, and you know.
And to be fair, because I still have records, and I don't think I'll ever sell them, just because I do really love them. And I think there's something really nice and cozy about like getting records out and showing them with other people, and like, oh yeah, do you want to put this on? That kind of thing. It's just really nice. Yeah,
it's a very conscious listening experience, isn't it? Like you can't, like with streaming comparatively, you just slap it on, don't you? You can just like done, and like it is very impersonal. Whereas a vinyl does feel like like a very, I don't know, it's just it's an experience to share, or it just makes it into something that's a ritual. Yeah, it's like absolutely
lovely, nice ritual.
But right, we've talked about loads of things, but we've kind of diverged away from you personally, which I guess like I want to focus a little bit on as well as broadly. So I'm gonna do my thing as I guess the host and redirect the conversation towards like you as somebody who's studying, because you're currently completing a master's in what was it, being a creative musician, is that the title of it?
I think the official title is creative musician.
There we go. So I mean,
I don't know if they're going to change it though to something a little more flowing off the tongue, because it's quite difficult to say I have a master's in creative musicianship and like, okay, what's that, you know?
No, that's true. I'm glad you added the ship to the end of that, because I was like, I have a master's in creative musician.
I am a master's in creative music. Pardon?
Yeah, so
do you have someone that helps you?
Yeah, where's your carer?
No, I mean, but like, that's just the title though. The actual course is fantastic. I mean, it was better before COVID, but
what wasn't?
Exactly. To be honest, I'm glad that I had almost like the studying to do under the lockdown, because it's been just a nice kind of thing to get going on every day. Just do a bit of work on my music or whatever, and and it is like it's just really good.
So where are you studying that? Because obviously I know. And that's a loaded question, but we're not just having a conversation. This is hopefully for someone else to listen to as well. And so you're studying creative musicianship at
Leeds Conservatoire, not College of Music.
Yes.
They used to be called College of Music, but now they're Leeds Conservatoire, and they had to get rid of all the lanyards that said Leeds College of Music on them.
It's such faff to do a rebrand, isn't it? But whatever. Yeah. So you're doing it there, and you'd done previously, we were both on the same undergraduate course, which was, just popular music. You studied...
I did pop drums, which is kind of just like performance and, being in bands, and then you did pop songwriting, right? Yeah,
composition. It's, there were just two pathways, two stems of the same tree, essentially. So, you've kind of been there for, because of COVID, you've been there a little bit longer because of deferring... dates and pushing things back, but overall 4.5 years or so.
I know, it does. I've been there a while.
So how have you found, like, as a musician, starting so early? We were talking, you started the 10-11 age, became interested in kind of playing music a bit more. Like, obviously there's a big difference between playing music. Obviously you were doing grades, but there's a big difference between that and the kind of going into a higher education role and studying academically. How have you found that experience?
Yeah, you got me thinking actually, because I was like, yeah, why did I pick music at the time that I did to study? And I think it's because I wanted to just go to uni, but I thought I might as well go with, what I'm doing at the minute and what I actually love. I mean, yeah, I hope it was a good decision. I hope that I will continue, because I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's always difficult doing a practical degree, because at the end of it, your merits are kind of based on like the connections you make and the possibility of more later on. It's not like you get out of music degree and you know how to do music. It's more just sort of, it just gets you into that world, that way of thinking of like, I don't know, but yeah, it's a lot less definable than say a degree in chemistry, where you can, well, not that I know, because I don't know shit. But yeah,
I know what you're saying.
About?
Yeah,
It's
not so much of a purely academic subject. It is like a Bachelor of Arts, which is it has a distinction for a reason. Absolutely.
I don't know. I think that's just what I wanted to do. I wanted something that wasn't so academic, and I wanted something that I could do music, and it wasn't just a hobby. It was like the actual focus. Really, get good.
So as a musician, then, like in terms of transforming your learning experience pre and during like academic and institutionalized education, what kind of career is it that you're already in and working towards? Like what are you doing and what are you aiming towards? Yeah.
Well, I play the drums and I play in various bands. And we used to get quite a few gigs, actually, which is kind of sad, really, when you think about it.
It is.
Because I think I know a lot of other instrumentalists are probably feeling this as well, where it's like gigging is kind of the main thing to go for, I think. Like, because there's always going to be live music, there's always going to be an audience for live music. Mm-hmm. So there's always kind of an income stream in that regard. So now not having that has kind of made me rethink and just kind of take on, learn other skills that kind of help me to not just be the drummer, but maybe understand music sort of as a whole a bit more.
Mm-hmm. As a creative musician, maybe.
Ah, yes. I create music in my spare time, don't you know?
But yeah, so it has forced you all of this COVID business to diversify.
Definitely. Especially not being able to play in bands as well, because especially as a drummer, that's kind of how you get good, is by playing in bands and getting that sort of live feedback loop from the other musicians all the time.
Yeah.
You can immediately tell like when you've done something good or when you've done something bad, and that's a lot harder to do without a band. So
no, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't I hadn't considered it, but I hadn't dwelled on the thoughts of that, because very similarly, I've not been playing with other musicians, but I think in particular as a drummer, the feedback is so important, because like in most genres of music, the drums are kind of quite a supportive instrument, so it's kind of and it's working out how far you can push it, isn't it? And like that is really it, isn't it? It's like you push it, you look up, you're like, okay, I got away with that. Push it a bit more, and I think you're right. You do miss out on some of that feedback. Yeah,
definitely. Especially as you say, as a supporting instrumentalist, because at the end of the day, you're just trying to make the artist who you're playing for sound better. Mm-hmm. And it's quite difficult to actually do that, because a lot of the time you're kind of thinking, well, how can I sound better? Yeah. And it might not necessarily be serving the song.
Sure.
So, that's one,
No, that's a very interesting dichotomy. Like, I hate overusing that word, but it is. Balancing between serving yourself and serving the song, and like leaving.
You've got to have fun, haven't you, a little bit?
Yeah, it's like the ego element as well. It's like you want something to sound cool, and your idea of what sounds cool is what makes your fingerprint as a musician. That's like what makes Louis Berthoud the drummer that you are.
And that's what makes Joe Sheldon the composer that you are, because you do write a lot of cool tunes.
Oh, well, thank you, man.
Even though you're not being the one interviewed, I thought, just bring that in.
Throw me that back, you just turned it on me. I can't believe you just done that. It's
Sorry.
Unbelievable.
I've upset the framework. Swap seats.
The Matrix. It's all, the illusion is ruined. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I think that's the other thing right there, like, that you get from, like, gigs, is, like, from playing with other bands, is you get, like, feedback, and, like, arguably some of it is insincere, and there is a lot of, like, circle jerking that happens at gigs. But that is something that, we're all missing now, is that actual feedback from musicians who aren't in the band we're in.
Yeah.
Like, and obviously a way you can get that feedback is through releasing recorded music, but there's nothing quite as visceral as there is like a 3-band lineup at, like, a local venue, or, however many bands, but just for example, and you get exposed to, like, admittedly a lot of shit music as well. I will say that, like, it isn't all fun, like, but like, there's a lot of great music out there as well, like, and there's nothing like being exposed to the most exciting and raw form of music, and being able to interact with the people who literally just made that sound.
Yeah. How did you make that sound? That's what I'd ask them. Steal it from them, and use it for my own music.
Yeah, no, that's so true.
You said something nice about, like, the feedback isn't always sincere. Like, if you say, "Oh, that was good," but actually, I found that really helped me. Because obviously, I didn't know a lot about music until I started this masters. I say music, I mean like tonal music and stuff. Mm-hmm. So the first couple of tunes that I was writing weren't very good. But, like, I had quite a lot of positive feedback, I think, from my tutor, who kind of found the good things in them. And it would have been easy for him to just say, that's not very good. But I think the fact that he didn't, but kind of suggested ways in which I could improve them, and kind of like positive criticism almost, kind of really helped me, and motivated me to keep writing. And now I can write better tunes than I could before, and I hope that next year I will say the same. Because that's all you can do, is just get better than you were, be able to write better songs than you could write before.
Yeah, I think so. It's like progress.
Just do your best. don't think about what others think of you. Just No,
that's so true. And it's like exploring it all and finding your own voice within that, because you can have things crushed out of you, to conformity, and there is a great thing to be said to that, to challenge yourself, to write a 4-chord pop song, or to write a piece of, like, atonal, like, noise music, or you can set yourself these challenges, and you might even tell yourself before, like, oh, it's easy, I would never do that, it's too easy. But that, to me, sounds like somebody who doesn't dare. Like,
I could not write a pop song. Wow. I mean, I say I can't, but that's what I mean. Like, there's so many gaps, isn't there? I think everyone has gaps in their knowledge, but, like, I feel like with me especially, I just have so many gaps when it comes to, like, writing and stuff. I think that would be a great exercise in actually trying to write something and conform to a 4-chord pop song.
I think so. I think that's a great challenge to set yourself, as like, even if you think you can do that, like, just do it then. Prove it.
Do it right now.
Yeah, money where your mouth is. I think talk is cheap. I think it's so true. And saying that, you're talking about your own music and the stuff you're writing currently.
Ooh.
I'm kind of interested in, just, I guess, to wrap up the conversation to some extent, is to talk about, like, the projects that you are an active member of, and the projects that you are, like, the creative director of, so
cool.
Talk away, I guess.
Cool, well, I'm in a project at the minute. I guess I should mention Iona. I'm in her band at the minute.
Iona who?
Oh, Iona Lane, folk musician.
There we go. Full name.
I feel like an actual band, that's probably, like, the only, like, consistent actual band that I've been in sort of through the lockdown period. Even though we haven't been rehearsing, it's still been, like, kind of, preparing and stuff for her, her upcoming album and stuff.
Yeah, and what kind of, like, I do know, what kind of music it is, but what kind of, it's like folky in its raw roots, but then obviously it's not, like, just folk. There is obviously a modern element to it.
It's essentially, I think at its core, it's very, it's definitely folk music. there's definitely pop elements as well to it, which I think is great. And also the ensemble, having a drum kit in it and an acoustic bass, I think lends it also more to like even contemporary jazz.
Oh, okay.
But only in sound.
Sure.
Just because obviously when you play a ride cymbal and you hear a bass kind of doing that, it kind of brings up images of like jazz sounding stuff.
Absolutely. That's so interesting.
I don't know. Obviously there's a violin in there as well, which kind of takes it back to that folksy route, I think.
Yeah.
But it's super nice sound, super fun band to play in, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
it's cool.
Yeah, have you done many projects like that before? Or is that kind of like, in terms of that genre and that style, what itch does that scratch for you?
I've done a couple of folky bits actually. I did some work for Easton, who's another folk musician I know.
Mm-hmm.
Easton Guillory? That's how you say it, isn't it?
I never said his name out loud before.
I've only said it written down.
I've only said his first name and only
But he's got some great tunes. I've played on those before, and I played on a guy's Henry Parker, who's again that kind of folky, in that folky scene.
Okay, so you've kind of
quite like it.
Yeah. You sound so surprised, I guess.
I actually like folk, yeah. I guess that means I like folk.
Yeah, no, that's great though. It sounds like such an interesting and wholesome experience working on these, more folky projects.
It does make you think more as a drummer. You kind of got to know how to make yourself sound softer, I guess. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but using mallets and brushes and kind of textural techniques. Because you don't always want to be smashing the kit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's it doesn't really work, does it?
No, I think, learning to be conservative on any instrument in any regard, whether it's dynamic or whether it's, just complexity of textures, like you were talking about earlier, reducing the size of your kit or whatever, all of these elements of limitation actually improve your ability to play an instrument.
Yeah.
So you've got that going on.
And that's the stuff I'm doing for other people, but I also have my own stuff. I mean, I'm not going to plug it too much, but I'm always kind of writing just because I find it really fun. And as of late, I've been trying to prepare for this final trimester. That's what it's called. Because there's 3 of them.
It's like a pregnancy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I would be birthing a child of music.
God. It's like a
new music.
Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he gets pregnant. Have you seen that one? That's good. That is he's a man but he gets pregnant. That is pretty much
What, Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger obviously.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, you should check that out. That's
I'll have to watch it sometime.
But all tangents aside, so you've been birthing this musical project.
Yeah, most of the musical ideas I've had, I've kind of been throwing into this EP called Paint by Numbers, which I'll release. Well, actually, I'm not going to release it. It will be released by the time this is released.
Oh yeah,
which is kind of weird. So future.
It will be out there.
It'll be out there. Yeah. So but I think that project has really been a good practice for getting sort of basic production techniques down. Mm-hmm. Kind of understanding how to mix MIDI instruments to actually make them sound kind of decent.
Yeah.
Because to begin with, I was like, I don't want any MIDI on this EP. I want it all to be like acoustic instruments and kind of bring in a lot of people, because I know a lot of fantastic instrumentalists who I was going to get in, and I had great plans. But then it kind of got to it, and I was like, this is probably too much to bite off, I think. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going the MIDI approach.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that is, I think MIDI, the sound of a computerized instrument, if you lean into it, I think it's a great sound. It's like kind of an uncanny valley almost, like kind of creepy sound. You're like, it sounds like a computer made it. So it's kind of synthetic and robotic. But I think, there's a guitarist, Alan Holdsworth, who I think really leans into that, and he kind of plays these chords, and he's got a trumpet sound or something, like this shit MIDI trumpet sound hooked in, and he's kind of playing these chords, weird janky jazz chords. And it just sounds like a chorus of alien trumpets. Mm-hmm. I just think it's great. So MIDI's cool. So expect some of that in the EP.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And like you say, that was your opportunity to explore DAWs and just getting into that techie side, because I think in particular drums, obviously you were saying you started on electronic kit, but drums are quite an acoustic and quite a primitive instrument in its core. Like you are like not just hitting things to underplay it, but like it's a very simplistic mechanism that drives the instrument, isn't it? You're holding sticks and you're hitting things, whereas like a piano player might also play the keyboard, and the keyboard immediately puts you interfacing with different keyboards with all of the electronics of that, and MIDI keyboard, immediately you're on a computer and you can do all this crazy stuff. And the guitar, you have effects pedals, and more now, like, SPDs and pads and technology are integrating into like the essential items of being a modern drummer. But you are, I think it's been interesting to hear, of your experience learning, getting to grips with the kind of more technological aspects.
I did realise, in order to write music, I kind of had to get either my chops on the like guitar or piano down. I figured piano kind of came a bit more naturally to me. I think I just kind of, because I had lessons before. Yeah, so I just thought, if I'm going to write tunes, I need to be able to play the piano a bit. Not well, just enough to kind of voice things and hear my ideas back. And then just kind of, now I actually kind of do want to learn the piano. I'm kind of like, why not? I mean, I've got all this time in lockdown, I might as well get down to another instrument. So,
You've been enjoying...
So it's crazy how lockdown can kind of, get you into different things.
Gives you a lot of opportunities to
reinvent, or not even reinvent, but just kind of add to your roster.
Yeah, I think that's so important that you've actually chosen to do that as well, because I think it would be so easy to be defeated. Or even just, the alternative positive option would be to double down on what you're already doing. That you could have just gone like doubly hard on drums and just like, gone crazy and, been like Animal from the Muppets, just bringing that, that up again. Muppets are getting 2 mentions in one sitting is unusual, but I think it's interesting that you've chosen to diversify rather than like maybe specialize more with this time. But I mean, unless there's anything else you really think you'd like to talk about, that seems like a great place to kind of draw things to a conclusion for me.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm happy to do the same, Joe.
Yeah,
always a pleasure.
Yeah, man, it has been real fun. Thank you for doing this, like the first one as well. It's quite a burden to take on, knowing that.
Yeah, because then everyone, when you get famous, everyone will look to the first one. They'll be like, "Who's this?
Who's this guy?"
And then I don't even want to think about that actually.
No, it's
But hopefully we'll do another. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, no, I'd definitely love to speak to you again. I mean, you're a great friend of mine, and you're also somebody who I respect greatly as a musician. And I think I hope that everything we've talked about today, blossoms into beautiful projects. But thanks again, man.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for having me.